Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. My name's Ryan, and in today's video, I'm going to be listing out what were my favorite top 10 bottles of 2024. So we're going to hit all 10 of them. I also have 3 honorable mentions that we'll hit at the end. So let's get cranking here. I don't have these in a specific order. These are just the 10 that stood out the most to me. They're not in an order of like least to greatest. So keep that in mind. The first whiskey to make the cut today is the Devil's Tower from the Small Lot series from Redwood Empire. This is my second bottle this year because the first one was so good I had to kill it. So this is my second bottle of batch 1. I think batch 2 is actually already starting to come out, if I'm not mistaken. But this is batch 1. And I'm having a hard time bringing myself to kill this bottle because it's just so friggin' good, so friggin' cool. But this was a high rye mash bill coming out of Redwood Empire, and I thought it was the best of their full small lot series, which I have all 4 of them. You can see up there. But the Devil's Tower was just delicious to me. You know, it's a high rye mash bill bourbon, so 51% corn, 45% rye, 2% malted barley, 2% wheat. So it's actually a 4 grain, which is kind of cool. But this bottle to me was like creme brulee meets snowy pine ski lodge, right? And I just thought it was delicious. So that's the first to make the list today. The second, let me grab it. Boom. New riff. This is the sherry finished malted rye whiskey. Oh my gosh. This is a flavor bomb. I had people send in samples of this for like a blind and then for a different series that we were doing. And both times I had it, I was blown away by it, and I had to get my hands on my own bottle, which is now what I'm working on right now. And this is freaking dynamite. Okay, so the sherry finish works so well with a malted rye, and I'm here for it. Super jammy. I think of like raspberry jam when I drink this, and I'm a big sucker for raspberries. So I think this is definitely a must buy, and it easily makes my top 10 list for the year. I'm gonna run out of space up here. Next up is one I'm not sure many people are gonna include, but for me, this pour was so freaking good, there was no way I was gonna exclude it. But this is Jack Daniel's 12-year batch 2. So batch 2 came out early this year, and I have had to force myself to stop taking little sips of it every now and then because I don't have a backup of this bottle, and I really want one because this is straight dynamite. Lots of those burnt barrel sugars, creme brulee, and I get even like this toasted coconut vibe on this that is seriously makes it one of my absolute favorite bottles of whiskey that I have right now. It is so stinking good. That's why JD12 makes the cut. Next on the list is a bottle I don't have to show you, because I was not fortunate enough to get my hands on a full bottle of it, but I have had 3 different times. That's the number 4. 3, there we go. I've had 3 different times this year that I've had the wonderful pleasure of sitting down and enjoying pours from this bottle. Once with a friend who had a bottle, we sat down together and he shared a couple of pours. It was phenomenal. And then I had 2 samples sent in this year as well from other people who watch the channel who were kind enough to send me some from their bottles. But it's the Russell's 15. And this is, for me personally, I like Wild Turkey quite a bit. This is the best bottle I have ever had from Wild Turkey, and it's not even close. It's not close at all. But I remember getting like this caramel brownie note off of that bottle, which was just straight fire. And I have not stopped thinking about that bottle since I have had it. So I highly recommend, if you ever see one in the wild, you ever get the chance to buy one, I think you gotta do it, right? I certainly would if I ever went and saw one on a shelf for a reasonable price close to MSRP. Next up is gonna be Maker's Mark, the Heart Release. So this one I think is, it just depends on your palate, but for me personally, I thought the Heart Release was absolutely delicious. It's nice, soft, and palatable, but at the same time, it brings a whole lot of like these cherry fruit notes forward, and really soft caramels and vanillas from the oak sugars. I just think it's phenomenal. I tend to really like the oak sugar notes you get off of French oak in general, and that's why this bottle is getting pretty low, is because I just think it is so stinking tasty. So it makes the cut. Next up is going to be another bottle I don't have to show you. I have had multiple pours from this bottle this year, but again, I did not get my hands on one myself. I actually had a chance to. I kind of wish I had taken it, but it was one of those situations where I'd already blown my whiskey budget for the month when the opportunity presented itself. You ever have this situation where you're like, you've got money set aside for whiskey and you settle for a couple of bottles, and then like the one you were really after comes along and you're like, gosh dang it, I already spent my budget. That was me when it comes to this one. But next up on the list is going to be the Westward Milestone 2. This was, without a doubt, the best American single malt I have ever tasted. And it's just that simple. Westward consistently crushing it. I've got a lot of Westward on my shelf. You can see some of them in the background right there, and then there's a couple behind them. But anyways, absolute dynamite whiskeys coming out of Westward. They certainly know their stuff. I think they're doing the best when it comes to American single malts. I think they're sort of setting the bar in that category. A lot of people get close with a bottle here and there, with a release here and there, but in terms of consistency, no one's doing it as well as Westward is. Release after release after release. And their Milestone 2 bottle was no exception to that rule. Oh my gosh. What an amazing pour. Expensive, but amazing. Next up on the list is going to be Little Book, The Path Not Taken. I freaking adore this bottle. Let me just, I'll just look right here. So the thing about this blend is that you've got some really old stuff in here. You got an 18-year-old Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey that's a high rye mash bill. So that's pretty cool. We've got a Kentucky Straight Rye Whiskey that's 11 years old, a 7-year-old Rye Malt Whiskey, and then you have 3 different 5-year-old Straight Ryes and a 4-year-old Straight Rye. It's pretty cool. So it's a blend of like bourbons and ryes, essentially like a Boo Rye, and it brings that nuttiness that you've come to expect from Jim Beam distillate, but it also brings that, that spicy quality that comes with a mature rye, right? You get some of those softer fruits that come in alongside that spicy quality, and I think those things just played so well together that made this bottle pretty irresistible to me. I have no regrets here. Okay, we've got 3 left. Next up is going to be the Sagamore 9-year. Had a couple of pours of this year, and it seriously impressed. I'm a big rye fan in general on Sagamore. Just you can't go wrong there in general. And the 9-year was fantastic. Still MGP distillate, all right? Full disclosure, so we know that. Their stuff itself isn't quite matured and old enough yet to be 9 years old, I don't think. But this year's 9-year-old release was MGP distillate, but they selected some very, very good stuff. I actually had it go toe-to-toe in a blind against the Overholt 11-year, which was brand new this year. And the 9-year Sagamore, I thought, blew it out of the water. And I love the 10-year Overholt, which I think is phenomenal, but the 11-year just didn't have that same attitude to it. And the 9-year Sagamore, I just thought was a better taste altogether. So Sag 9-year rye makes the cut. Next up is this Bardstown. It's sort of like a cream color label, but this is the Origin distillate. Their new release is a high wheat bourbon. And oh my gosh, for the price, you just can't go wrong here. It's like a $50 bottle. And oh my gosh, it's so sweet and yummy, and it tastes like butterscotch candies, and the mouthfeel thick, viscous. It's just so oily and creamy, and I just think it's one of the best bottles this year, especially when you're talking about value. Generally speaking, I just think that Bardstown's Origin series is probably one of the best values out there today. You have the black label, the white label, now that cream label with the wheated bourbon, and then you also have the rye, which is really good. And rumors are the price is actually going to come down on the rye, because I think it was like, what was that, $80, something like that? I think it's coming down, is what the earlier reports are saying. So it's not going to change. It's not going to get any younger or lower in quality. I think they're just going to start bringing the price on it down so that it can be more in line with the other releases in the Origin series. But the others are like $40 to $50 and phenomenal. But the last bottle in my top 10 for the year, again, not a bottle I have my hands on right now. It didn't last. I got sent in samples from 2 different people who had the bottle, and they were very generous. And I have drank all of them because they were so good. But it's going to be the Ben Holiday Bourbon Lore collaboration. And the reason it didn't last is because this came out, I think, in like February. Like, it's really early this year that this bottle dropped. The Bourbon Lore collaboration with Ben Holiday. A very limited release, so getting your hands on one, I don't think it's even possible at this point. It'd be all gone by now. But it was phenomenal, and I remember so many people singing the praises of that bottle, and then I just never heard much again about it. Like, no one brought it up anymore after that. But that bottle was so good. It had a combination of being really heavy in the caramels and really heavy in like the maraschino cherry notes as well, and those two things just went together beautifully. It was singing in my mouth, and I'm pretty sure that was a 7-year, if memory serves correctly. But either way, it was phenomenal, and I have not forgotten about that bottle, even when some others may have. I certainly did not. And that is the last to make my top 10 list for 2024. But I do have a few honorable mentions. Both of these bottles are empty, but I kept them because I knew this video was coming up. This is New Holland. This is their Dragon's Milk Origin Toasted series. The reason this is an honorable mention is they had 2 drops this year of this stuff. And the way they do it, it's distillery only, right? So that's why I didn't want to put it on the list officially, because if you're not in Michigan at the time of the drop, you're not getting one, period. But I went to both of these bottle drops, and what they do is they usually have 3 to 4 barrels that are toasted, and then they're X whatever. So this one was an apple brandy. They had like a toasted honey barrel, but they release several bottles. So it's rebarreled in a toasted barrel that's X whatever, and then you can go to the distillery and you can get one from each barrel if you want, as many as one from each barrel if you want. So I had gotten one from most of them this year. 2 I kept, and the others I ended up procuring for friends of mine out of the state. This stuff is straight fire. Straight fire. You ever get the chance to try any of their toasted barrel series, you got to do it. It's at barrel strength. This one was the apple brandy, finished in toasted oak and Applejack brandy barrels. Boom. And this one was 123.5 proof. Come on. They're killing it. Next honorable mention, and the reason it's an honorable mention is because it's a barrel pick. But this is Bardstown, and this is a single barrel. And this was a pick done by the Soda Boys. They were the only ones in South Carolina this year that got to do a Bardstown bourbon pick. I think one other group did a rye. But they're the only ones in South Carolina that got the exclusive right to do a bourbon pick. This bottle was like candy. I couldn't keep my hands off of it. I shared it with my brother-in-law and father-in-law. It's gone, and I got it like a month ago, 3 weeks ago, something like that. I don't know. But it did not last because it was so freaking good. And the last honorable mention, I'm going to go ahead and say the 7-year Jim Beam Black Label that came out this year is one of the best bottom shelf whiskeys I've ever had. It's a $30 bottle, 7-year-old Jim Beam distillate. It's not super high proof. I think it's like, what is it, 90? Yeah, 90 proof. That bottle's so good for $30. It's like when the chips are down and you need a cheap bottle and you're like, I'm down to just like my good stuff, but I want to have something cheap to drink on with no guilt. You gotta get that one. It's $30. Always good. Always good. So that one certainly makes the honorable mention list. And there you have it. Those are all the bottles that I think are noteworthy in 2024 to me personally. Which ones do you think would have made your list that didn't make my list that you're like, nah, this has to be in the conversation somewhere? There's plenty of them. We all have different palates, things that stand out to us. Give me your top bottle that should have made the list but didn't. Thanks as always for tuning into the channel. If you enjoyed the video, would you let me know by leaving a like on the video? It's just the best free way to support the content right here on YouTube. And feel free to introduce yourself in our Discord. It's free to join, but if you want to join and get involved in our events, you can join the Patreon group for as little as $1 a month. And a link to that is in the description as well. That gives you access to our Patreon lounge. And we do things like bottle shares and stuff like that, swap samples, all that business. It's a great community to be a part of. So we'd love to meet you. Come say hi, introduce yourself. And with that, I say cheers, my friends. May you live richly and get better with age. And I hope to catch you in the next one. Bye-bye.